She heard nothing. That was what bothered her most afterward. Not what had happened. She had processed that, had worked through it in the steady, methodical way she processed most things. What stayed with her was the silence. She had heard nothing. The large golden retriever had been working in silence for hours before she woke up. She found him at 2 a.m. by accident. She had gotten up for water, and he wasn't beside the bed, which was wrong, which had never happened before, which made her trace the hallway to the place he'd gone. He was in the baby's room. His body was at the crib rail, his nose 2 inches from the sleeping infant's face, his attention on something she couldn't see or hear or smell. She stood in the doorway for a long time. She was a practical woman who did not believe in anything she couldn't measure, which is why what she did next surprised even her. She picked up the baby, checked her color, checked her breathing, and then, because the dog's attention had a quality she couldn't explain but couldn't dismiss, she called the nurse line. She described what she saw. The nurse asked 2 questions and told her to come in. Pyloric stenosis with projectile vomiting and dehydration worsening. That was the finding. The kind of thing that accumulates silently that a monitor in the next room might not catch, that a sleeping parent absolutely would not catch. But a large golden retriever standing 2 inches from the problem for 3 hours, working the air, filing the information. A large golden retriever would catch it. The pediatrician used the phrase early enough twice. She drove home in the gray light of early morning with the baby and the paperwork and the follow-up instructions. The large golden retriever was at the door when she came in. He sniffed the baby once thoroughly and then walked back to his bed and lay down. She watched him settle. She thought about the night she had slept through, the hours the dog had been awake, the specific precision with which he had stationed himself at the exact location where his detection would be most effective. She thought about the word practical. She thought about what practical actually means when you apply it to an animal that has spent 3 hours at a crib rail in the dark, not sleeping, not asking for anything, just working. That is practical. What she had been doing, sleeping through it with her insufficient instruments and her insufficient senses, was something else entirely. She poured herself coffee and sat at the table across from the dog. "You were right," she said. He opened one eye. "I'm going to stop assuming I'm the most informed person in this house," she said. He closed the eye again. She took that as agreement. The family processed it in stages. First, the immediate relief of knowing, of having information where before there had been unease and explanation, and the particular discomfort of watching an animal do something unexplained. Second, the retrospective, the looking back through the days of behavior and reassigning meaning. This moment was not play, it was alert. This moment was not territorial, it was navigation. The rereading happened over dinner, over the drive home from the clinic, in the quiet of the nights that followed. Third, the question that did not have an answer, and that they found they did not need answered. How long had the retriever known? Not known, detected, responded to, done the thing. The research existed. They found it in pieces over the following days. Studies on canine olfactory detection of blood glucose, studies on animal alerting to seizure precursors, documented cases of dogs identifying respiratory changes, cardiac events, bacterial infections, all before human instruments registered anything wrong. The mechanism in each case was the same. Chemical compounds that shift when physiology changes, compounds that exist in breath and skin and the microscopic chemistry of a body doing something different than its normal operating state. A dog's nose contains roughly 300 million olfactory receptors. A human nose contains approximately 6 million. The math was simple. The implication was less simple. It meant the retriever had been living in a version of their home that was richer in information than the version they occupied, had been reading in real time a chemical record of everyone in the house, had been tracking changes in that record the way a careful person tracks changes in a patient's chart, had flagged the change, had acted on the flagging, had kept acting until someone paid attention. The father sat in the kitchen one evening the week after. The retriever was asleep in his usual place. The house was quiet. He thought about the word alert, about what it meant when applied to an animal rather than an instrument. Instruments beeped. Lights came on. Numbers changed on screens. This had been different. This had been a living thing making a decision about what the information required and then executing the decision. Daily, without acknowledgement, without the guarantee that anyone would ever understand what it was doing. Just doing it. Just staying at the post. He looked at the retriever sleeping. He thought about what he owed this animal. Not gratitude exactly. Gratitude implied a transaction, and there had been no transaction. The retriever had not done this for gratitude, had done it because the biology of the house had changed, and the change required response. He thought about what he owed was more like attention, like the kind of watching that he had finally done, the 40 minutes or the night check or the moment in the doorway when he had stopped explaining and started looking. He owed that consistently. He intended to give it. The retriever stirred in his sleep. His legs moved briefly, running in some dream version of the yard, some private accounting of the day's information. Then he was still again. The father sat with his coffee and the quiet house and the sleeping retriever and thought about all the nights the animal had been awake while the family slept. All the nights the nose had been working. The information had been filed. The map of the household's health had been updated and reviewed.